At 9:22 in the morning, a single missile lifts off the Iranian coastline. 4 seconds later, the Abraham Lincoln's SPY-6 radar picks it up. Inside the Combat Information Center, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Webb studies the contact and feels nothing out of the ordinary. One ballistic trajectory, clean climb, standard Cororumshar profile. A missile this crew has defeated so many times during this war that the intercept sequence practically runs itself. SM-6 assigned, solution building, everything exactly where it should be. Iran is counting on that. What Webb doesn't know, what nobody in that Combat Information Center knows yet, is that this missile was never designed to be defeated. It was designed to be intercepted perfectly, exactly the way the Aegis system is about to do it. Because the intercept isn't the end of this engagement. It's the beginning of one. Iran's targeting officers spent 11 days building this attack around a single insight. The Abraham Lincoln's crew has shot down so many Cororumshar missiles that they've stopped being afraid of them. That familiarity is the weapon, not the missile. The crew's own confidence in a solution they've run dozens of times is what Iran intends to use against them this morning. One deck below, inside the passive infrared suite, Petty Officer First Class Layla Hassan is looking at the missile's thermal signature and writing down a number. Not because anyone asked her to, because something about it doesn't match the 19 months of Iranian missile data she's been quietly building in a personal library that nobody else on this ship knows exists. The warhead section is reading 4 degrees colder than it should be. She stares at that number for 3 full seconds. Then she keeps watching, because 4 degrees on a passive infrared sensor is the kind of detail that either means nothing or means everything. And right now she doesn't know which one it is. By the time she knows for certain, the crew above her will have already done exactly what Iran needed them to do. To understand what Iran actually fired at the Abraham Lincoln that morning, and more importantly, what Iran understood about how the Lincoln would respond to it, you need to understand what a cluster munition dispenser is and why nobody in the formation was looking for one. A standard Cororumshar carries a unitary warhead, one solid explosive fill, one detonation, one impact point. The Aegis system has a clean answer for that. SM-6 intercept in terminal phase, high kill probability, engagement complete. The Abraham Lincoln has run this solution so many times it's become routine in the way only 47 days of continuous combat can make something routine. The Cororumshar cluster variant carries no unitary warhead at all. Its forward section is a dispenser, a hollow metal cylinder packed with 80 individual submunitions. Each one a self-guided bomblet. Each one 4 kilograms with its own shaped charge and its own terminal guidance. The dispenser is hollow between those submunitions, and hollow space does not retain heat the way solid explosive fill does on a passive infrared sensor during flight. A hollow dispenser reads 4 degrees colder than a standard warhead section. 4 degrees. That is the entire difference between a missile the Abraham Lincoln knows how to defeat and a weapon designed to do something the Aegis system was never built to handle. At 40,000 feet, the dispenser opens. All 80 submunitions release simultaneously. Already armed, already oriented toward the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, falling on independent ballistic arcs that spread them across a 4-mile dispersal radius, dropping straight down from directly above. The SPY-6 radar, which had been tracking one contact on a clean ballistic trajectory, suddenly has 80 contacts on its display. Not from the horizon, from directly overhead, falling vertically onto the formation from 40,000 feet. The Aegis system was designed to engage threats approaching from the horizon, missiles flying toward the ship. Not 80 objects dropping vertically from close range with almost no intercept geometry available. The SM-6's engagement envelope does not cover near vertical threats at this range. The Phalanx can engage targets from above, but its single targeting radar tracks one contact at a time. 80 contacts, one tracking radar. The Phalanx stops maybe 4 of them before the others reach the flight deck. Iran knew this. Iran had known it since the first week of the war, when their analysts studied every Aegis engagement geometry the Abraham Lincoln had used against their missiles and found the one direction the system genuinely cannot defend against at scale: straight down, from directly overhead, with 80 independent contacts arriving simultaneously. The Cororumshar was just the delivery vehicle. 40,000 feet was just the address, and the Abraham Lincoln's own intercept sequence, the one running perfectly right now, the one the crew has complete confidence in, is the mechanism that delivers the missile to that address completely unmolested. Webb authorized the SM-6 at 9:24, and it is climbing toward a clean intercept solution that is going to work exactly as designed. The missile will be destroyed, and when it is destroyed at 40,000 feet directly above the formation, 80 submunitions are going to open across the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck with nothing meaningful left to stop them. Hassan picks up the circuit to the Combat Information Center at 9:24. Ma'am, this is Hassan in passive infrared. The Cororumshar contact has a warhead section reading 4.1 degrees below standard thermal baseline. I have 19 months of Iranian missile signatures, and this reading is consistent with a cluster dispenser, not a unitary warhead. If I'm right, this missile doesn't need to survive the intercept. It opens at altitude and drops submunitions directly onto the formation. The SM-6 solution needs to be retasked to a lower intercept altitude before the missile reaches 40,000 feet. We have maybe 90 seconds. Webb looks at her display. Clean SM-6 solution. 1 contact. 94% intercept probability. The engagement running exactly as it has run dozens of times before. She tells Hassan her assessment has been logged and asks her to stand by. The contact passes 30,000 feet. Hassan does not argue. She goes back to her display and keeps calculating, because standing by is not the same as stopping. If the SM-6 hits the Cororumshar at 40,000 feet, the submunitions will still release. Not in a controlled dispersion pattern, but in a fragmented, chaotic one. Worse in some ways, better in others. The Sea Sparrow point defense system, which uses a proximity fuse warhead that detonates inside a cluster of closely spaced contacts, is the closest thing on the Abraham Lincoln to a weapon that can engage multiple simultaneous overhead contacts in a single shot. She starts building a Sea Sparrow pre-positioning solution for overhead engagement. Nobody asked her to do this. She does it anyway, because the contact is at 32,000 feet, and she has 8,000 feet left to be wrong about everything. She picks up the circuit again at 9:25. Ma'am, the contact is at 33,000 feet, 7,000 feet from what I'm assessing as dispersion altitude. I'm not asking you to cancel the SM-6. I'm asking you to retask it to intercept at 37,000 feet instead of 40,000, 3,000 feet lower. That's the difference between 80 submunitions releasing in a controlled pattern directly above us and 80 submunitions releasing in a fragmented pattern that Sea Sparrow might be able to partially engage. I also need authorization to pre-position Sea Sparrow for overhead coverage right now. Webb looks at the contact. 34,000 feet. The SM-6 already climbing toward its solution. Retasking mid-flight means rebuilding the fire control geometry from scratch with 34 seconds remaining before the missile reaches 37,000 feet. She looks at the thermal signature data Hassan attached to her report. The 4.1 degree cold reading. The timestamp showing Hassan had been tracking this specific anomaly since the moment the missile launched. She almost tells Hassan to stand by one more time. She has run this intercept solution 47 times. It has worked 47 times. One junior enlisted sailor watching a thermal variance on a passive infrared sensor is not a reason to rebuild a working fire control solution with 34 seconds left on the clock. Except that 4.1 degrees is not a small number on a passive infrared sensor. And Hassan has 19 months of data behind it. And the contact is at 35,000 feet. Webb retasks the SM-6 at 9:25 and 41 seconds. The fire control computer has 31 seconds to rebuild the intercept geometry to a new altitude, 3,000 feet lower than the original solution. It is a difficult calculation, Changing an intercept point mid-flight requires accounting for the SM-6's current velocity, heading, and fuel state against a new projected position for a target that is still climbing. The Aegis system flags the retask as high risk. Webb authorizes it anyway. The rebuilt solution locks at 9:26 and 9 seconds. The contact passes 36,000 feet. 37,000 feet. The SM-6 reaches its new intercept point at 37,400 feet, 2,600 feet below the Cororumshar's dispersion altitude, and detonates 6 meters from the missile's forward section. What happens next is not a clean kill. It is controlled chaos. And Hassan knew that when she asked for the lower intercept altitude. The SM-6's fragmentation pattern shreds the dispenser casing at 37,400 feet. 80 submunitions release, not in a coordinated overhead dispersion from 40,000 feet, but in a violent fragmented scatter, tumbling and spinning and partially armed, spreading across a 6-mile radius instead of 4 miles. Trajectories randomized by the force of the detonation, rather than guided by the dispenser's designed release geometry. 47 submunitions are destroyed instantly by the SM-6 detonation and the sympathetic explosions it triggers in their shaped charges. 33 survive in various states of damage, some fully armed and still tracking, some tumbling without guidance, some with no terminal function at all. The Sea Sparrow Hassan had pre-positioned engages the 11 submunitions whose trajectories bring them within the formation's perimeter. 7 destroyed cleanly. 4 get through. Their guidance sections too damaged to track properly, their trajectories too erratic for the targeting solution to follow, and they impact the ocean within 200 meters of the formation. 1 detonates 47 meters from the hull of the USS Spruance. A shaped charge from a 4-kilogram submunition against an Arleigh Burke's hull plating does not penetrate. The pressure wave injures 3 crew members. The remaining 22 submunitions impact the ocean between 400 meters and 4 miles from the formation. None reach a hull. In the Combat Information Center, the tactical display shows the Cororumshar contact destroyed and 80 secondary contacts appearing and disappearing across a 6-mile radius over 44 seconds. Webb watches the last contact vanish and looks at the damage report. 3 injured crew members on the Spruance. No hull penetration. Abraham Lincoln untouched. She picks up the circuit to Hassan's position. The 4.1 degree reading. Walk me through how you found it. Hassan looks at her passive infrared library. 19 months of Iranian missile thermal signatures that nobody asked her to collect, and nobody knew she was building. The specific temperature differential she first documented 14 months ago on a Cororumshar engagement when something about the signature felt wrong, and she wrote it down instead of letting it go. I started building the library on my first deployment, ma'am. Every Iranian missile I tracked, I logged the thermal baseline. After enough data points, the anomalies become visible. Webb is quiet for a moment. Then, how many anomalies have you logged that you haven't reported yet? Hassan looks at her library. 19 months of data. 7 other signature variances she had documented across different Iranian missile types that didn't match their standard baselines. Things she had been watching quietly because she wasn't certain yet. And being uncertain had never felt like enough to pick up a circuit and interrupt an active engagement. Until today. 7, she says. The response came at 9:44. The Cororumshar cluster variant launcher, tracked by the E-2D Hawkeye from the moment of launch and fixed to within 14 meters by the time the engagement ended, received 12 BGM-109 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the Abraham Lincoln's vertical launch cells. The launcher, the crew, and the targeting facility that had spent 11 days designing an attack around the Abraham Lincoln's own confidence ceased to exist. At 10:31, Hassan's thermal signature library, all 19 months of it, was transmitted to every passive infrared operator in the theater. At 9:47, 7 previously undocumented Iranian missile signature variances, each one now a known anomaly, each one a potential warning of a weapon behaving differently than its radar profile suggested, went out to every operator in the fleet. Iran fired its most carefully designed missile at the USS Abraham Lincoln, a weapon built not around overwhelming the defense, but around using the defense against itself, letting the Aegis system run its perfect intercept solution at exactly the wrong altitude, while 80 submunitions waited to open across the flight deck from directly above. It would have worked. Every part of that plan worked exactly as Iran designed it. Right up until a petty officer first class with a 19-month thermal signature library that nobody knew existed picked up a circuit twice and said the warhead section was reading 4.1 degrees too cold. America's response destroyed the launcher at 10:31 and sent 7 new anomaly signatures to every operator in the theater. And the lesson Iran took home from the Arabian Sea that morning was not about the missile, or the dispenser, or the 80 submunitions. It was about the sailor who spent 19 months building a library nobody asked for, because she understood that the most dangerous things on a battlefield are never the ones that look dangerous. They are the ones that look completely normal.